Hey peeps, welcome to the Flexible Neurotic podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Sarah Milken. Let's do this. Hi peeps, welcome back to the Flexible Neurotic podcast. I'm Dr. Sarah Milken, the Flexible Neurotic. This is the Midlife Self-Reinvention podcast where we get into all the ugs and fabulosities of midlife. Today, I have a guest who I've had my eye on for a long time on Instagram. I love what she posts, how she posts, and what she says. She's a health and nutrition expert, self-taught, and is a certified holistic nutritionist. She is a recipe expert and shares her knowledge about food and health on Instagram. Her recipes are free of dairy, gluten, sugars, and are all metabolically balanced. She makes it look easy, although I'm not sure it is. Maybe it is. I want you to meet Beth Bollinger of Nest Wellness.
Thank you for that.
Oh my God, I'm so happy to have you here. Of course, I see you popping up on Instagram, so it's always nice. Even though it's not in real life, it's like closer than an Instagram post away. So I'm so happy to have you here. Thank you for saying yes. I know sometimes doing podcasts can be, an extra thing, can feel scary outside of your comfort zone. So I'm so happy you're here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Let's start with the fact that I don't cook. So for me, looking at your Instagram, it's like food porn. I can't make it, but I love looking at it. I'm not going to say I can't. I just haven't dove into really trying yet. It's like my Achilles heel. Like everybody's got something that they either can't do, have fear around, like something, right? Cooking is that thing for me.
Why is that?
I don't know. I just feel like my mom didn't cook. So I didn't grow up in a house with my mom cooking. My dad cooked. He didn't make it like a family thing. It was like he was the chef. He was making us this beautiful dinner and we were going to sit down and have a family dinner together, but I wasn't part of the process. So for me, when I see someone like you, I'm like, oh my God, I have such like inspirational envy. Like she makes it look so easy. Like she cooks the food, she like gathers the food, and it's all metabolically perfect and all the things. So today, for the intention of this episode, in this podcast, we have a golden shit shovel. The golden shit shovel digs through all the midlife layers of all different things, raising teens, being metabolically healthy, midlife freedoms, so many of the things that are all on our minds and we're all thinking about. But today I want to talk about kind of your philosophy, your hacks, your expert skills in creating a lifestyle and wellness plan for midlife women. I know for you, it's not just for midlife women, but for the purpose of this podcast, in kind of achieving, I guess, what you call the no frailty plan.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I kind of want to get into what you're doing, how you're doing it, how do you make it look so easy, and kind of break down some of the little parts of it. And I think so much of what you do is your personal story and how you got here. So I just love for you to kind of give us like a quick snapshot into, like, I know you had a health thing, your husband did, your daughter did. And from all of that, you know how they sometimes say like your pain becomes your purpose. Kind of how you got to where you are and having this Instagram account and website and business.
Yeah. So I guess I'll start back when I was 23. I suffered from uncontrolled chest pain. Nobody could figure out what it was. Lots of testing, lots of imaging studies. Nobody could find anything that was wrong. Fast forward about 12 years, by the time I was 35, I was finally diagnosed with a mitral valve prolapse syndrome, which it's a benign heart condition, but it causes chest pain in some people. And so there was very little research at the time, but the research that I was able to find suggested that increasing magnesium, increasing hydration, and cutting out sugar would all be helpful. So I did all three of those things, and I felt really good for the first time in a long time. I started to be a label reader for the first time in my life. I ate, up until that point, really the standard American diet. And I realized that there was refined sugar in just about everything. So I cut out high fructose corn syrup, white sugar, brown sugar, maltitol, all the different names for sugar. And I started using just small amounts of maple syrup, honey, and dates in cooking. And at that time, there were very few food blogs or recipes. This was 22 years ago. So
Wow.
very, very few resources for cooking that way. So I recreated family favorites using natural sugars. And that was really the starting point of my health journey.
You had your husband, you said he turned into dad bod.
He did.
That made me
Well,
laugh.
yeah, so that was sort of related to my daughter. Had been one of my daughters. I have three daughters and one son. So one of my daughters had been born with some health issues, and she was prescribed many, many rounds of antibiotics. And we know now that that's not the preferred treatment for ear infections in children. But at the time, 23 years ago, that was what they did. They just prescribed antibiotics. And so by the time she was 7, she really had a lot of gut dysfunction. And so we went to specialists, and they suggested that she was maybe just constipated and that we should increase her fiber intake. And they recommended Fiber One bars. And I don't know if you've ever seen the ingredient list on a Fiber One bar, but
I
it's
kind of like the brownie one. I'm not going to lie. For the
they
reasons that you're saying. It's like terrible.
So they said, increase your grain intake. So we did that. In solidarity, because I was the one doing the cooking, we all increased our grain intake. My husband's weight ballooned, my weight ballooned. We all felt terrible. We got sicker and fatter. I thought, this just can't be right. There's something wrong here. And I happened upon, the books that were out at the time, Grain Brain and Wheat Belly. And I realized this was not the right direction to go in. And so at that point, we cut grain out of our diet. And again, there were just not that many recipes and resources available. So I was cooking pretty much grain-free, sugar-free at that point. That helped us all to slim down again and feel good again.
Now, I also read that so your husband's a doctor, and then later in life he gave up his practice and was working at a hospital, and the hospital food was just horrific. So you said, okay, dad bod, some metabolic issues, pre-diabetic, like we're gonna get this under control. So you started making him breakfast and lunch. By the way, super wife. I'm not sure I would have done that. I still don't do that, but kudos. I'm
Oh,
impressed. Um, and you said that, that really started to change things for him because he wasn't eating the garbage from the hospital cafeteria.
yeah. Yeah. So I knew he was eating well at home. And so the thing that really changed course for him was packing him breakfast and lunch for the hospital.
And so what does a typical breakfast and lunch and dinner look like in your house? Because it doesn't look like what it looks like in my house.
So for my husband, he typically has no oats for breakfast, which is my 3-seed combination. It's ground flax, hemp hearts, and either basil or chia seeds.
And you just came out, it's called No Oats. So
Yeah,
it's kind of a play on that it's not oatmeal,
exactly.
right?
It's
And you
like,
just came out with your own product, which I just got in the mail yesterday. Thank you so much, by the way. I can't wait to try because oatmeal's my breakfast of choice. And I know there's issues with that. So I'm excited to hear about this.
it was my low carb oatmeal swap, basically. Several years ago, I started wearing a continuous glucose monitor to develop recipes that created a level glucose response. And I realized pretty quickly that oatmeal was a big blood sugar spiker, even in combination with fat, fiber, and protein. A lot of people say don't eat your carbs naked. Well, even non-naked oatmeal is a big blood sugar
Oh
spiker.
my God, that I know. And my oatmeal is like a science experiment, Beth. It's like I have the oatmeal that has 10 grams of protein. It has a little bit of flax already in it, but it's probably a really scant amount.
Yeah.
Then I add a protein powder,
Okay.
which is the Truvani one, which is a plant protein.
Okay.
Then I add creatine. Then I
Mm-hmm.
add chia seeds and organic walnuts. So I
Okay.
feel like in my mind, I've made it like much better than it could have been, but I'm not sure if I put a glucose monitor on, what would happen.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I love glucose monitors. Everybody's reaction to food is going to be different. And that's why I encourage all of my clients to try a continuous glucose monitor to see what their own reaction is to certain foods.
And first, for the people who don't know what it is, will you explain it? Because it sounds like you're like hooked up to like an IV, but it's so different from that.
Yeah. So a continuous glucose monitor is, I don't know, it's about the size of a quarter. And it's a little device that you wear on the back of your arm for 10 to 14 days. And it measures your glucose continuously and it syncs with an app on your smartphone. And so you can see in real time your body's response to food, stress, exercise, lack of sleep. It's really informs you about the workings of your own body. You can see, your oatmeal. I mean, it sounds wonderful, but the seeing in real time your body's response, your glucose response to that oatmeal is really powerful.
And how many times, like how long would you wear it for? And is one reading of one oatmeal enough to make a decision about it?
I recommend that the first couple of weeks you're wearing a glucose monitor that you just eat as you normally would. Don't change anything and just see how your habits are affecting your blood glucose. And then from there, if you find that oatmeal bowl spikes your glucose more than 30 points,
What
add.
is it supposed to be? Like, what is that number when you look at it on the glucose monitor that's kind of within normal range?
So you ideally want your fasting glucose to be well under 100, optimally in the 70 to 86 range
Got
would be
it.
ideal
So when
for.
you eat your no oats,
Mm-hmm.
what are you adding to it? I know you have all sort of beautiful concoctions on your Instagram. I'm like blueberries and all this stuff. Tell, what's your fave?
So lately, I've been doing yogurt bowls with
Okay.
no oats and then some berries or some nuts.
And do you find that fat of the no oats is what's satisfying about it, or is it the fiber? Because the no oats has a little bit higher of a fat content than the average oatmeal. Is that this sort of secret sauce, this satiety factor to it?
Satiety factor absolutely is much, much greater than oatmeal. So it's the fiber and it's the fat and it's the protein too.
So once you add the yogurt, the no oats, and then whatever kind of plant milk substance, or I think you use goat milk or something, right?
Today, well, so like today I had yogurt, goat whey, no oats, berries, and nuts.
Okay.
And also just mix the 3 seed mixture with warm water or with unsweetened nut milk.
And what's your
Um,
favorite yogurt? Like you don't eat dairy though. So how do you do the yogurt piece?
yeah, so I don't tolerate some cow dairy. So I'm allergic to the A1 protein in dairy, which is most cow dairy. You can find A2 protein cow dairy now, which is what I can tolerate. So the A2 protein is the protein that's in goat and sheep products.
So
So I
what would be
tolerate.
an example product? Like when you're at this Whole Foods, like what brand is that? What is it?
So Bellwether Farms is a local dairy
Okay.
that raises A2 cows, and so I've been using their yogurt lately.
Does that mean that it's not dairy? What does that
Just
mean?
means that it's a different protein. It doesn't contain the A1 protein, which a
So
lot
you
of
so you
sense.
know how when people say dairy causes inflammation,
Mm.
does the A2 not cause inflammation or just doesn't upset your stomach?
It does not upset my stomach, and I don't
Okay.
get inflammatory for me.
I see. Okay. Because it gets a little bit confusing with that. And then how do you feel about the other yogurts? I know you did a post on comparing three different kinds of yogurt. Can you
Mm-hmm.
take us through that? Because I feel like midlife and protein are so interlinked and like needing to increase our protein. And a lot of us want to eat yogurt, but like coconut yogurt, for example, is not dairy, but it's not high in protein. So then you
There,
get into the whole loop of, okay, let me add protein powder in it. And then that's a whole shitstorm because then you're like, okay, which protein powder? Is it whey? Is it plant? Is it this? And it's like, it's so many things, Beth.
yeah. So you're right. We do need to lean into protein in midlife. 30 grams of protein per meal as a goal is a really good goal to have. Um, So, as far as yogurts, Greek yogurt is always going to be highest in protein. So, if you tolerate cow dairy, Greek yogurt is an excellent source of protein. Because I don't tolerate cow dairy, I don't choose Greek yogurt for myself. So, I do end up adding goat whey to my yogurt when I
Okay,
have.
goat whey, Beth.
Yes.
Explain, please.
So goat whey protein is high in leucine, helps with lean muscle. You can get cow whey, but like I said, I don't tolerate most cow
Is
products.
that what most whey protein powders are? Okay.
Most whey
Okay.
protein powders are cow dairy. Yes.
Okay.
So that's why goat whey. Yeah.
Okay, so the goat milk is different. Now, does goat whey have some of the kind of inflammatory stuff that regular whey people talk about regular whey potentially having?
Goat whey is very well tolerated, very easily digested, very bioavailable. Yeah.
Got
So
it. And does it taste the same as the other ones?
I've never tasted a cow whey product, so I couldn't tell you, the difference between the two. But um, we buy the plain and the vanilla because my husband can taste that little bit of goat in the goat whey, and which I don't mind. So he prefers the vanilla.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And so what would be an application for him or you using that goat whey powder? So would you add that to your breakfast bowl or was that part
Yes,
of the list?
that's part of the list. Yeah. So
Okay.
because the yogurt that I'm consuming is lower in protein than a Greek yogurt, I'll add a scoop of the goat whey into my.
Okay. And how many grams of protein does a goat whey have?
So 2 scoops is 24 grams of protein.
If you put 2 scoops of your goat whey into that yogurt bowl,
Yeah.
no oats concoction,
Yeah.
do you get the powder to kind of really integrate with the yolk with everything?
Yes. Yes.
Is there a certain order it should go in? Because maybe I just am screwing up the order.
I just put the yogurt in the bottom of the bowl, dump the seeds on, dump the goat whey on, and I mix it with a
Do you have
spoon.
to add water or anything?
If your yogurt is thicker, you might need to add water. A2 and goat yogurt tend to be thinner, so they
Okay.
you don't have to add
Now,
water.
what brand of goat whey powder do you like?
I really like Mount Capra. It's straight from the farm. It's a small family farm.
Oh, okay. So it's not like an Amazon ticket.
No, I
Okay.
do have a coupon if people want to try, and I can
Okay,
share.
amazing. Amazing. Okay, so tell us with this kind of health lifestyle that you're living, where health comes first.
Mhm.
One of the things that I read about on your Instagram and your website is how our bodies need plants and
Mhm.
need the plant diversity. I almost fell over when you said 30 because I was like, shit, do I hit three in a week? And you're talking about 30. Tell us why we need so many plants for our gut microbiome and how in God's name do we get all of that done?
Yeah, so our gut microbiome thrives on plant diversity. So for a healthy gut microbiome, we need a wide variety of different plants. And by plants, I mean not only vegetables and fruits, but herbs, spices, nuts, seeds. And a good goal would be 30 different plants a week, including fermented vegetables, fermented foods. The average American, I think I read, eats 3 to 5 different plants a week, most of them being lettuce, tomato, and potatoes, like in the form of French fries. So,
Or on In-N-Out Burger.
exactly. Exactly. Yes. Yeah. So, the wider variety of plant materials we can include in our diet, the happier our gut bugs will be.
How does the average person go to the market and where do you even start? Like, did you start out thinking like, okay, I'm just going to start out with, adding 3 different ones a day? Like, how does the average person start doing something like that? Because it seems really massive.
I try to keep it simple and not necessarily force people to follow a recipe. So I do something called assembled meals. So, uh, if you think of your plate as half of it being leafy greens or vegetables of some kind, a quarter of the plate being protein, and the other quarter being a combination of complex carbs, fermented foods, um, coming up with an assembled meal can be an easy way to think about it. So for dinner, for example, decide on your protein, whether that's going to be fish, red meat, chicken, whatever that is. And then around that protein, pick 2 to 3 different vegetables. And that can be a really simple dinner formula. And those components can be prepped on the weekend. So it's not a rush at dinner time. So on the weekend, I might roast a chicken or cook a couple pounds of ground beef, steam some vegetables, cut up some vegetables. So then when it comes to dinner time, you can just assemble a meal with components that you've
So
prepped.
would that be considered meal prep?
Yeah.
Or yeah, meal batching, or I'm trying to think of like what the terminology would be. So do you go to the market one day, or are you the type of person who's at the market 5 days a week? Do you know what your whole week is going to look like?
I don't really plan out specific meals. I kind of like variety. I know a lot of people, a lot of my clients, I will create a meal plan for them that they follow to a T.
Okay.
But I like to prep components ahead of time and then just assemble a meal based on what we're feeling like having for dinner. My freezer is stocked with frozen, regeneratively raised meats and wild caught fish. So I can pull from the freezer, at the last minute, even.
Got it. And do you find, I mean, I know your kids, how old are your oldest?
So my oldest is almost 28.
Okay. And then they go down to what?
28, 25, 23, and 15.
Okay. So you have one at home?
And at home.
One at
Yeah.
home. And does he comply with, I mean, is he like, what is this woman doing? Why do we have to eat everything perfectly? Or is he so used to it because he was young when you started?
He was 3, I think, when we sort
Yeah.
of into a paleo-ish diet. And so he really doesn't know any different. And he likes to cook. So he will help me or
He's
occasionally.
adorable. I always see him on Instagram. How does he feel about it? Like when he goes out into the real world or goes to a birthday party or dinner, how does this lifestyle kind of work in with that?
He eats whatever he wants when he's at a friend's house or at a birthday party or um, in social situations. I let him make those decisions for himself.
Okay.
Occasionally he'll tell me, "Oh, I had a hot dog and then I had a headache after." He said, "I wonder if there was something in the hot dog that gave me a headache." So he's aware, and he can make the connections now that he's a teenager between what he's eating and how he's feeling.
What is the research saying? Like, once you've eliminated certain things, then can you really never have that like accidental bite of a croissant or something like that? How does that work? Like for you guys, is it a choice thing?
For me, I don't feel good if I eat sugar or if I eat grain. It gives me chest pain. And connecting the dots, when I started using a continuous glucose monitor, I realized those are the things that give me a really big glucose spike. And those for me translate into chest pain. So
That's so interesting.
not worth it to me to eat those foods because I don't feel good. Uh,
Right.
for my husband, if we're going to a friend's house and they have bread or they're making pizza or whatever, my husband will totally eat whatever is on offer. And same with my son. But I just need to be a little bit more careful because it affects how I feel.
Got it. So do you sort of, if you're in a social situation, do you sort of like eat before you go or some, like I try to say that to my mom. I'm like, we're having an event. I'm not sure I can like get a gluten-free thing. Like, can you maybe eat something, a little bite before you come so that in case I don't have something, it's hard on both ends.
Yeah, yeah. So if I'm going into a situation where I'm not sure what the food options are going to be, I'll have a handful of nuts and a hard-boiled egg before I go. I'll always bring something that I can eat that other people might enjoy so that there's at least one dish that I know I can eat.
And do you feel like it like it's hard with like social stuff and all of that, or it's just like part of your life?
It's just a part of our life. I don't even really think about it anymore. In the
Right.
beginning, it was hard. Um, I remember taking a trip shortly after we cut grain and sugar out of our diet and landing in our destination. And we were ravenous and going to a convenience store. And you know what convenience stores are like? They're
Yeah.
all wheat and sugar. Um, and so, like, the only thing that we could find in this convenience store that we could eat was like a banana and some nuts. And so, that in the beginning was a little tricky to navigate, but it's just second nature now. I don't
Now,
even.
are there any bars or snacks that you can recommend to people that are kind of metabolically on target, that taste pretty good, that you don't actually, you know, like a throw in your purse kind of thing, where you don't have to sort of, you know, open the peanut butter jar and then make a little Tupperware. Like,
My biggest grab and go tos are nuts and salmon jerky. Um, those are what I gravitate to. I find that most bars really are not blood sugar friendly. Um,
and how do you manage? Like, my husband was like, I was eating a lot of nuts and then suddenly I was like 5 pounds heavier. Who knows if one had anything to do with the other, but how do you manage like the fat content or like how much you're really eating of that supposed healthy snack? Is it like you put it in a little baggie? Are you
yes.
pre-measuring it? Because he was like grabbing handfuls and it turned into like a thing, you know?
Yeah. So when I take nuts to go, it'll be in a, in a snack size baggie or in a, in a small container.
Got it. Okay. Because I just feel like for me, without having some kind of bar or something, I eat the, I don't even know if it's that good for you, but like the chomps,
Oh
it
yeah.
said, yeah, it says it's clean.
Those are great.
And though each of those has 10 grams, I'm not sure how healthy it is to eat. I don't know. Is jerky, it reminds me of a hot dog a little bit. You know what I mean? An
Yeah,
amalgamation of something.
those are super clean and Paleo Valley makes good
Yeah.
one. But yes, I think those are a better option than a protein bar because most protein bars are just loaded with sugar
Okay.
and very little protein.
Now, so for blood sugar, obviously blood sugar is like the bane of a lot of our existences. Social media is all over it, being metabolically flexible. Now with all of these GLP-1s and people saying like, "Oh, I'm not just taking them to lose weight, it's controlling my blood sugar too," and metformin and all these things. How it seems like such a large and daunting task. You know, as a midlife woman, you're like, okay, I need to cut back on sugar. I need to cut back on grains. I need to cut back, you know, all of these things. How have you taught your clients to, instead of kind of seeing it as this like imposition or that's so fucking hard or I don't want to give this up? Like, what's the mindset to kind of adopt it as a lifestyle rather than a diet?
I think it's important to think about how you want to age, how strong you want to be as you get older. because that helps you to prioritize the protein. And that's a good first step is prioritizing the protein. If you can get to 30 grams of protein at breakfast to start your day, you're going to have better energy, better mood. It's going to keep you satiated longer. It's going to help you build and keep muscle as you age. So baby steps, I would say, starting with nailing the protein.
Now, do you intermittent fast?
I do. I
And so
do.
what's your window?
So I usually eat in a 10-hour window and then I fast for 14 hours. And that just seems to work well for me. Some people can go 16 hours, and I will occasionally, but 14 seems to be a
See,
sweet spot.
I find sometimes with the fasting, like it's hard for me to get all that protein and all those meals into the time frame without feeling like I'm exploding.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So do you feel like so like what are your meal times in that 10-hour window?
So lately, I've been breaking my fast around 11.
Okay.
Uh, and then I'll eat lunch around 2:30 and then dinner around 6:30, something like that.
And do you work out fasting?
Yes. Yes. I'll have in my tea in the morning, I'll have creatine and collagen, and that'll be before I work out.
Got it. Okay. And so you put the creatine powder, sort of like I do my oatmeal. And how many grams do you use?
5 grams of
Is there
creatine.
a particular brand that you're obsessed with?
I really like Thorn.
Okay.
It's my favorite.
Mine doesn't really have a taste. I think mine's momentous. Mine doesn't really have a taste.
It
And
doesn't.
you know, when people say to you, well, is that working? Like, how does that making you feel? I take so many things, Beth. I'm like, I don't know. You know what
I
I
know.
mean? Like, how could I just narrow it down to like, oh yeah, I'm taking this omega-3 and it's making me feel amazing. I'm taking 35,000 things. Anything in your regimen where you like absolutely know for sure this thing is working, or you couldn't do that?
Well, I do blood tests, every 6 months. So I know what my nutrient levels are, and I know my omega-3 to my omega-6 ratio, and you know, I know if I'm on track with my nutrients.
But there's
So,
nothing that you take on the daily where you're like, oh, if I don't take that for 2 weeks, I'm going to feel like shit. You know, like we're all looking for those secrets of like, what's Beth's little secret?
when I travel, I don't necessarily take my creatine and my collagen with me. No. I don't think I think it just being consistent with my protein and my fermented foods keeps my gut happy. Um, I think that's what I would say, being consistent with protein, fiber, and fermented foods. That's
Okay,
what.
we have to talk about the fermented foods because to be honest, it like kind of grosses me out. I'm like, sauerkraut, what? Like, what are you talking about? Why do we need fermented foods? And what's an easy way of incorporating that doesn't sound sauerkrauty?
I think the easiest way for people to start with fermented foods is maybe apple cider vinegar.
Oh,
Uh,
okay, that's tolerable.
yeah, that's tolerable, and you can make a yummy drink with a glass of filtered water, tablespoon apple cider vinegar, some basil seeds, a couple drops of stevia, and it's almost like I don't know, like a fun drink.
So is
Uh,
that instead of sauerkraut?
yes, you
Oh
could
my
do
God, we're best friends now. Oh my God, we're such best friends because I'm like I can't eat certain things that are like I don't know.
yeah.
People are like
Yeah.
eat pickled whatever and I'm thinking I don't know what you're talking about.
That's good. That's a good starter fermented food for you. And
Okay. Oh my God.
another good one. Miso
What
is miso.
miso? Okay.
Yeah,
But is
so
that miso that you make or you're saying like at a restaurant in a Japanese soup?
yeah, you can have it in soup form, or it makes a nice glaze for fish, or
Okay,
pasta.
you and I are going to become really good friends here. Because I need some of these secret tricks because there's certain things I don't know how to make and certain like I don't know, there's certain textures of foods that like are weird to me. Like I don't eat fruit salad because I don't like all the fruits touching, but if each fruit is dry, I can eat it because then even if they're touching, they're not seeping into each other. But I don't feel that way about cooked vegetables or sautéed vegetables. It's just the fruit. In terms of the protein, let's get back to that for a second because protein stresses me out too. Because
Yes.
there's so much information out there like that's not a like collagen's not a complete protein and you know beef protein is better for you than plant protein. Like can you break that down for us because I don't know what I'm doing, what's counting towards the protein number. Is my plant protein in my oatmeal counting towards the real protein number as if I was eating a piece of chicken or not really?
Well, animal protein is the most bioavailable and the most complete protein. I think it's a good idea to get a wide variety of protein from a wide variety of sources. And I know people say collagen is not a complete protein, but as long as you're having animal protein, other sources of protein, it all counts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because like I'm drinking this coffee right now that I didn't have earlier, and I throw the collagen in there because I was like, that's 10 grams.
There you go.
But
Yeah.
then some people would be like, that's not really 10 grams because it's not a complete protein. And I'm like, oh my God, what should I put a pepperoni stick in there? Like
It all counts. It
it all
all
counts. Now, do you try to use, so in your mind, you would use the goat whey over a plant protein?
I would, yes.
Okay. Like in an ideal scenario.
Exactly, because it's a complete protein and it's a great source of leucine. Yes.
Okay. Now, in terms of going back to the collagen for a second, I use a particular brand of collagen. I don't find that any brand is different from the other. My hair is not growing like a maiden, like my nails aren't perfect, whatever. But I take it because it says, life says to take it. But I saw on your Instagram that there was a certain collagen protein that you liked because it had two specific elements in it. I could not possibly remember what they are. It was Fortis something. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah. So it's a patented formula that's supposed to be Fortibone. It's a patented formula that's supposed to be good for bone.
Okay.
Uh, Ferrosol and Fortigel are supposed to be good for collagen and skin, hair, and nails.
Okay.
So
And wait, what brand was that again?
it's Designs for Health.
Okay. Oh, I have a lot of stuff from them actually.
Yeah.
I feel like I should have a membership there or something.
Totally.
I'm like, oh my God. Now let's talk about sweeteners for a second. There is so much information out there on sweeteners, I could lose my mind. I know that you have a lot of experience with it and know a lot of the research, and you're actually doing a lot of the experiments in your kitchen with all the amazing desserts that you're showing. Tell us like what's good, what's bad, and what's ideal and how to use them.
Okay, so the three best sweeteners for blood sugar that are also considered healthy sweeteners would be allulose, and there's
Which is
new
such a weird word. Will you spell that?
Allulose.
Okay, I learned about that for the first time on your Instagram and I purchased it. I haven't used it yet though. You and I are
Yes.
going to talk about that along with the, apple cider elixir drink.
Okay. It's research showing that allulose is actually good for metabolic health. So not only is it a good sugar replacer, but it's actually good for you, good for your metabolic health.
So does that mean that brownies don't count as calories if you use it?
Well, there's still going to be calories, but the way I make them, they can be protein, nutrient dense. Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Okay, keep going.
So then the second one would be monk fruit sweetener. And then the third one that I is also blood sugar friendly would be stevia, pure stevia.
But what are the ones we don't want? We don't want high fructose corn syrup,
And high fructose corn syrup, sugar alcohols, aspartame, saccharin, um, maltitol, brown rice syrup, 100 other names for,
okay.
yeah.
And you also use maple syrup and dates, which still is sugar, but it's just is it like if you were going to compare a monk fruit or a stevia, those don't have calories, whereas syrup and a date do have calories.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
when would you use either, like what's the instance for either category?
I usually give options in recipes for a sweetener like monk fruit allulose and stevia, or an option for dates, maple syrup, and honey, because some people don't want to use the sweeteners. They only want to use the natural sugars. The natural sugars in combination with fat, fiber, and protein can produce a level glucose response. And so that's why I give those options. So they do contain calories. They will raise your blood sugar by themselves, but in combination in a recipe, for example, you can make them blood sugar friendly in combination with other ingredients.
So if you make Beth's cookies, the salted caramel cookies or whatever, and you make one version that's with dates or syrup and one version with one of the other three, the allulose or whatever. Number one, can you taste the difference? And number two, is there one that you would just pick? I mean, would you pick the one that was calorie free just because that would make sense?
I guess it depends what your goals are. If your goal is blood sugar balance and lower calorie, then I would always choose monk fruit allulose and stevia.
Okay. If you were to make cookies and one was with the calorie free versions and one was with the dates and the maple syrup, like why wouldn't you always sort of choose the calorie free one? Because then you could eat more. Are you saying it's just like in what instance would you do that in your house of picking one over the other?
Well, so if I'm making something for my son to take to school, he usually prefers maple syrup or honey over monk fruit.
Because he can sort of taste the difference.
He can sort of taste the difference. Yeah. And I think it's also more normal for the other kids, I think.
I get it. That makes
Yeah.
sense. Now, in terms of cooking, like, I mean, to me, that all of it sounds stressful. I know that on your website you talk about all these different kinds of pans that you can use because of the chemicals. Can you kind of give us like a quick snapshot? I know that sometimes I go into Amazon and I try to buy, it's like called a green pan or something. And then when I go to cook a sausage in it or something, it's not as non-stick as the shitty ones.
I
And it
know.
stresses me out. Like, how do I deal with that?
My go-to is cast iron. So I really
Okay.
staub they're enameled cast iron, and they're just indestructible. And I can cook really anything on
So
cast iron.
wait, is cast iron the one you don't use oil in?
No, you can use oil.
Oh,
Yeah.
you can.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what are the rules for it? Like, do you have to clean it in a specific way? I feel like there's some kind of,
Yeah. Enameled cast iron, you can clean it just as normal. You can, a couple drops of soap and a brush, and with water, it cleans
so
up.
that's different than like the seasoned cast iron.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, because that can, so if somebody just wanted like an everyday all-purpose, okay, I'm making the Trader Joe's chicken sausage this morning and I don't want a 17-hour cleaning of the pan project, what
Yeah.
is that pan?
That is my Staub skillet.
And
Yeah.
it's called the enameled skillet because I need to buy one of those immediately.
Yeah. Enameled cast iron.
And are there any other tricks like that we should know about? Like in terms of the pans and pots?
As far as the ceramic pans, the green pans, I own a couple of them, but they're finicky. You can't go over a certain
I
heat.
know.
They get ruined really easily. You have to use them on very low heat.
I
That's the
know.
trick.
And then like you're like, why isn't this cooking? Hurry up. I gotta go.
Yeah, yeah. So those are frustrating.
Okay, so you use the cast iron most of the time. In terms of oils, like I know I even though I'm not a cook, I do know that you can't use olive oil at high heat. So what instances do you use olive oil?
Olive oil can be used safely up to 425, 450.
So is that a myth?
It is a myth. It is a myth. Yes.
So like you can saute something in olive oil and you're not gonna make it go bad? Interesting. So then
And
what's all this push about using avocado oil because it has a higher smoke point? I don't even know.
yeah, I mean, avocado oil is great too. I use them both. I also use ghee, tallow, um, and coconut oil. Those are all the ones that I
So
use.
how do you pick? Like on the average, like I go and get the avocado oil spray. I can't even remember the brand. Like what's your go-to everyday oil?
Olive oil.
Olive
It's
oil.
too.
Okay. And is it the extra virgin and like what brand? Because they say that even if you go on the market and you buy the $42 one, it could still be shitty.
Yeah, there was a UC Davis study that showed that a lot of olive oils on the market are cut with other oils like canola.
Right.
So there's a farm here in Sebastopol, in Sonoma County. It's Goldridge Farm. So I use their olive oil. Laconico is a really good brand. I use their olive oil. So those are my two go-to brands.
Okay. And then what is there a specific avocado oil or is avocado oil more run of the mill?
It's a little more run of the mill. Uh, Chosen Foods.
Okay.
I can think of Thrive Market makes a good avocado oil.
And in terms of like, I see these amazing recipes on your Instagram, and I'm like, could I really make that? That looks really hard. It has so many elements to it. How do you, for your clients, and like you create these meal plans, like how do you make it easy for like someone like me? I'm sure a lot of your people are people like you who have great experience in cooking, but for like the average person, is like you're making some kind of Chilean sea bass or cod, and I'm looking at that and going, mine is not going to taste like hers.
But it can. I take all of that into account when I'm working with someone, how many ingredients they want to cook with, how much time do they want to spend in the kitchen. I can take all of that into account. If they want completely simpler recipes, I can totally do that. um, I take all of that into account when I create a meal plan for people, and I can absolutely make
Like
simple head.
even if I like put ground chicken or ground beef in a pan, like why is it always dry? And then I don't even want to eat it the next day. So when you say batching food, I'm thinking to myself, I don't even want to eat the chicken that I made tonight. How am I going to reheat it 3 days later?
Yeah, yeah. um,
What's your secret?
I don't use a lot of ground chicken because you're right, it's dry. Do you cook it in olive oil? Do you just cook it in a?
Yeah, but it's like I'm thinking to myself, okay, am I supposed to use one of those not a grinder, the thing that kind of separates the meat in the pan? Am I not getting it sort of thin enough where the oil's like soaking in? I haven't mastered that yet, where it's like even if I just try to make something super simple like that, it still just doesn't taste like if you made it.
Hmm. What about sauces and dressings? That's another thing that I teach people to, on the weekend, make 3 different sauces or dressings, and that can liven up any old vegetables or ground chicken.
So if you make these sauces and let's say you, I don't know, cook chicken over the weekend and then you go to reheat it a couple days later, do you feel like it has the same oomph?
Yeah, well, one of the things we do is roast a chicken, make the peanut dressing. That's a really popular one on my blog. And so, uh, you know, that chicken in combination with that peanut dressing and some fresh vegetables, that makes a great salad. Reheating something over and over is going to dry it out.
Right.
But using that roasted chicken in a salad where you're not having to reheat it.
I
uh,
see. Okay. Because when you reheat, I mean, I'm so lazy. I just reheat in the microwave, and my daughter's like, that's so weird. You have to reheat in a pan. And I'm like, that's like so many steps. And then we get back into the green pan saga, you
oh
know?
gosh, yeah, yeah.
Obviously you can see I'm trying to figure out how we could have like a routine here where it's like the same kind of 5 or 6 things over and over again because I feel like all the variety almost creates too much anxiety.
Yeah, yeah, I hear what you're saying.
I think my husband would probably eat anything kind of.
Yeah.
My kids are a whole other story. It's like I'm like, there's no way I'm gonna create a meal that you get at an amazing Japanese restaurant that's gonna taste like that.
Nothing I make is going to rival a 5-star restaurant either.
Exactly. It's like I'm like not every meal has to be like an entire party, you guys. Let's just eat and be done with this. So you don't eat sugar at all, which is so insanely amazing to me because I could never picture that and being able to maintain that. So even like the things that you make, the cookies and all that stuff on your Instagram, that's not part of your routine.
I don't eat sweets very often. No.
Wow.
Frequently, when I make things for Instagram, they go to neighbors or my son and his friends, or I like a couple squares of dark chocolate in the evening after dinner, and that satisfies my
So you don't want that like frozen yogurt with shit all on top.
really no.
Oh my God, I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous.
I would, I would feel bad. I would get chest pain, and it's
Right.
not worth it. So I have that motivator.
Yeah,
Uh,
I totally, totally get that. Now, in working with your clients, like tell me what like a kind of coaching package looks like.
yeah. So most people come to me trying to figure out a meal plan. And sometimes it's just for themselves. Sometimes it's for themselves and a spouse or a partner. Sometimes it's for the whole family. They want to increase their protein. They want to increase their plant diversity. Or they're, looking to shed a few pounds. So I'll meet with them initially and we'll discuss likes, dislikes, allergies, how much time they want to spend cooking, all of that. And from there, I'll create a meal plan based on all of that information.
Now, do you go through the pantry with them?
If they want me to, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they can ask, like, can they ask you dumb questions
Yes.
like about apple cider and allulose and pans and all the things?
Yes, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
do you, in terms of just you personally, in terms of supplements, like what are your like go-to supplements that you take on the daily?
So I take an activated B vitamin in the morning, um, and I take omega-3. And in the evening, I take magnesium. I take a curcumin. Uh, Trying to think. I do take melatonin
Vitamin D?
and vitamin D and K3.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to think of what else I take. Do you take any of like the esoteric ones, like I don't know, all the David Sinclair ones, like the NMN and all of those things that no. Okay. In terms of omega 3s, which brand do you like? Because they're all kind of like stinky and gross.
Nordic Naturals. I find that you don't get that burpy, fishy.
Do you use the one that's like the 2 times amount, the pellety one, the small pellets that say 2 times, whatever?
It's like a gel, like a block
Right.
shape. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
do you take those so you take those in the morning?
I take them with breakfast. Yeah.
Okay. And what about a probiotic? The probiotic thing stresses me out too because there's so much information.
Now, I don't find I need a probiotic.
Oh, but you're eating 30 plants.
Plants and the fermented food, and that keeps my gut healthy. Yeah. So I don't take.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, oh my God, that I can't even relate to that. That's so crazy. Is there any like alternative modality that you do that we should know about? I don't know, sauna, cold plunge, meditation, crystals, anything kind of fun and out there.
Fun and out there. My husband's building a sauna in the basement currently. So I am looking forward to adding that to my routine. Currently, strength training 3 times a week, zone 2 exercise on alternating days. So that can look like a hike with a weighted vest, a bike ride.
I have my vestie bestie.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
how many pounds is yours?
It's 8.
Yeah, I went from 8 to 10 recently,
Okay.
but I do it on the treadmill in air conditioning because then I
Good.
don't have to wash my hair.
Right. Right.
So
Good.
tell me, so tell me what the week is. 3 days a week, you're strength training. Are you going to the gym or is that in your house?
I work with a personal trainer on Tuesdays, and then Thursday and Saturday is strength training in our gym in the basement. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay. And do you lift heavy?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And how do you kind of keep knowing where you're at and like if you're increasing at the right rate and all of that stuff?
Yeah. So I kind of leave that up to the personal trainer. She's always increasing the weight. Um, and then I also keep track. I have a scale at home that measures percentage of muscle. And so I just want to make sure that I'm always keeping up with my muscle and not losing muscle.
Which machine do you use? My son has one. I can't remember which one he has.
Brand is Omron uh, in Omron full body
Okay.
precision scanner.
Okay. And it tells you your kind of body fat to muscle ratio. Because I think that it's a big topic right now because of the GLP-1 medications where a lot of people are losing weight and losing muscle mass, but they don't really 100% know that because they're just looking at the scale number versus the percentages.
Exactly. It's important to keep an eye on the percentage, on the amount of muscle that you're building.
Okay. And in terms of water, I know water is a big deal for you, and everyone talks about water. How much water do you drink? Do you drink it plain? Do you put salt in it? Do you put lemon in it? Do you put hydration powders in it? This is Pick Beth's Brain Day.
So a good rule of thumb is to drink half your body weight in ounces of water every day. And I would include herbal tea and green tea in that number. Sometimes I'll add salt and lemon, sometimes just lemon, sometimes sparkling water. It all counts toward that number, half your body
Do you
weight.
have to pee all the time?
Oh, probably, yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my God. Honestly, yesterday I went into a store and I had to pee when I walked in. I had
yeah.
to pee in the middle. And then I was like, okay, I have one more last pee before I leave because I had just had an entire bottle of water with powder in it. And I'm like, this is so annoying. But then I keep reminding myself, okay, hydrating from within, my skin, blah, blah, blah. It's hard. And I don't want to drink when I'm on the plane because having to climb over my husband or other people and go into that gross bathroom.
I know. Well, I always choose an aisle seat on the plane, and you know,
I hate the bathroom though. It's so gross. It's like, oh, I just don't want to touch anything, be in there. Like, ugh. Um, and in terms of your, wait, what do you call it? The no frailty plan?
oh, my anti-frailty plan.
Yeah. So your anti-frailty plan is to ski until you're how old?
Well, my original post, I said 80, and people told me that was way too young, that I needed.
Okay. Oh, that's good.
So that was good to hear.
Ski to
I've
100.
I've never known anybody to ski past, 75. So I thought 80 was a good goal, but people said, no, no, shoot for 90, 100. So uh,
Okay. So of all the things you do,
yeah,
like is there one thing that you think is the most important or no?
I would say two, and that's protein intake and lifting heavy.
Wow. Those are the two most annoying, Beth.
I know. I'm sorry.
It's like you want someone to give you some other answer, you know what I mean? But you know deep down that that's the answer. And they're weirdly hard. That's why I call them the dumb weights. It's like it's just not as easy as like walking on a treadmill,
I know. I know. And I
you
did my
know?
this morning.
You did? I didn't because I was recording another podcast before this. And there's no way I'm diving into that later. So that means it's like it's done. It's literally done for the day. And your husband does it all too, right?
He does. He does. He plays hockey, ice hockey, 2 days a week, and he works with a personal trainer one day, and then he's either bike riding with me or hiking with me, and then he uses our gym in the basement too.
And how do you measure this VO2 max? I know Peter Attia and all these people are talking about it. I've never measured mine. Have you measured yours?
Uh,
Like the VO2 max?
Really, I just use the sort of loose guideline of working out till you can not talk comfortably. That's kind of my zone two. My definition of zone two is, you're working hard enough that you can't talk comfortably
So
anymore.
would an example of that be you're wearing your 8 pound vest and you're hiking with your husband? Can you talk comfortably?
If it's uphill, not necessarily, that uphill
So
with
how often are you doing the not talk comfortably thing in a week?
it's ideally you want to do 2 to 3 sessions a week, basically.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you feel like because your life is all about your health and your business is all about your health, that like it's all this sort of big conflated thing where I don't know how to explain it. It's sort of like your lifestyle is also your business. So it's
Mhm.
like if you're cooking for your family, you're also cooking for Instagram and for your business. So it's kind of cool that it's all in one because you
Yeah.
could conceivably be, quote, working all day and you're in VO2 max, but you're filming it for your Instagram.
Oh, yeah. And my family always said, and that's why I rarely share dinner because they want me to be done working by the time, my husband gets home, my son's home from school, and they want to sit down and have dinner as a family. And mom, no more working. Don't take pictures of the dinner. So that's why I have very few pictures of dinner
That's
on my.
really funny. Now, before we wrap up, I can't help but ask this. Obviously, when you start something and then it turns into 100,000 followers and all the things, there's, women at home and like myself who are like, oh my God, how did she do that? Like, how did she get it so big so quickly? And I know that it's not all about metrics, but like, how did you start this? Were you scared? And how do you keep going?
I'm scared every day and I just keep going. I started it because I wanted to share, while I was sharing the recipes with my husband's patients, and I wanted to share more widely. So I created a website. And I also wanted to have all those recipes in one place for my kids. I guess each step of the way just built on that idea of sharing my love of healthy food, wanting people to feel better. It was such a revelation to me that food affected the way I felt, affected my health, that I wanted to share that. So I guess just every step of the way, I just followed my passion. I realized in order for people to want to make the food, the recipes, they needed to look good. So I studied food photography, and then I needed a way to share more widely. So I learned Instagram. I learned something new every day, and that's a part of it for me. I had to learn how to build a website. I had to learn what SEO meant.
I know.
It just sort of evolved, and I learned something new every single day. And I am so passionate about food as medicine that that's kind of what drives me.
And how did you kind of figure out the Instagram secret? Like, how did you get so many followers in such a short period of time and so much engagement?
I'm not
People
really
ask me that, and I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but okay.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I just try to share what people are asking me about. I get a lot of questions in my DMs and I try to answer them all. And then I base my content around all of the things that people are asking me all the time. I used to do all still photography. And when Instagram pivoted to Reels, I tried to pivot too. And so usually 2 to 3 reels a week, and then one static post a week is what I shoot for.
And do you find that stressful?
I do. And some weeks it's more stressful than others. Last
But
week, I just was not motivated and just wasn't feeling it.
and what do
So
you do on those days? Because I feel like that's something that I ask a lot of guests. Like those days and weeks where you're like, I'm just gonna burn the house down. I can't do this for one more minute. This is so hard. Like, how do you just sit in it? Like, how do you get yourself back in the game or you kind of just wait it out?
those are the days that I'll repurpose content. I'll repost a reel from 2 years ago. And honestly, those are the ones that have gone viral for me is 2-year-old reel, with a brand new voiceover, brand new music. And suddenly people like it this time. So I don't know what that's about, but most of the time I just try to take a break. And that's why I'll repurpose old content so I can go.
Right. Who's your main audience, would you say?
My main audience is women 35 to 70, perimenopause, menopause, that, and people newly diagnosed with prediabetes, um, people wanting to feel better.
And are people finding you through Reels? How are they finding you?
I think they're finding me one through the Levels app. There are about 100 of my recipes on the Levels Health app.
Tell us what Levels app is.
So, Levels Health is an app that works in conjunction with a continuous glucose monitor. So, you can log your food, you can take pictures of your meals. There's a whole section in the app that has recipes. So, about 100 of my recipes live in that app. So, a lot of people find me that way. And then through Reels, I think, and word of mouth. I think a lot of people share with their friends, especially if they know someone with a new prediabetes diagnosis. They find me that way.
Got it. Yeah, because I mean, I feel like the reason I also wanted you on the podcast, not just for my own selfish reasons of wanting to pick your brain and share all the information, but it's also, I think we have very similar demographics. It's women who are seeking, kind of more nuanced health information rather than just drink more water. There's a lot of things that we know to do, but we don't actually do them. And I think sometimes having conversations with people who bring, a different perspective, a different edge to it, like one idea can kind of just change your mindset about something. Before we wrap up, I want you to tell people how they can find you, where they can find you, and all the things.
So, my website is where all of my recipes live, and that's nest-wellness.com. You can find me on Instagram at nestwellness_.
And tell us where we can find your product that I'm going to try myself and report back.
So, I launched the No Oats in collaboration with Amy of Witsy's Granola. So, witsies.com is where you'll find the No Oats. It's witzis.com.
Okay, so we can find your product, we can find your website, we can find your Instagram. I'm so happy you came on this podcast. I'm so glad that now I can pick your brain for all these secret hacks and I don't have to eat sauerkraut. Been toying with the continuous glucose monitor thing, the idea of it for the past year, but I'm also one of those weird people, like I don't weigh myself. So sometimes when it's a slippery slope for me, I never have with monitoring because I'm just like, am I going to become like weirdly obsessed with it? But I feel like maybe if I just gave myself a month just to understand like what my oatmeal science experiment's doing to me or, all these things.
Even 1 month will give you tons of information, and it's worth doing. And I can give you a coupon to share with your.
Okay. And does it, and it'll like, because another thing that you did mention after I just wrapped up this episode, because I'm such a lunatic, is you did mention that on your glucose monitor, it can, like, even if you're just stressed, dehydrated, or tired, it can spike your blood sugar. So, how do you know what's food related and what's I only slept for 6 hours?
Your glucose is always going to be higher if you didn't sleep well. If you'll be able to see on the app your response to food because you log when you ate that food. And so the time 2 hours after you eat, that's going to be your response to food. If you sauna increases your blood glucose, so you might see a spike from sauna. Extreme exercise, when you're releasing glycogen stores, that's going to raise your glucose. So you'll be able to see on the app your response. You'll
So you
log.
actually have to type in when you ate, when you
Yeah,
exercised, when you did the sauna. Otherwise, you have no idea what relates to what.
exactly.
Okay, I
Exactly.
got it. Makes sense.
Even 1 month of doing that, you'll get a pretty good picture of
What
what.
an amazing summer project, Beth. That's so sexy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Midlife continuous glucose monitor. But I saw in one of your posts that you wear it on your stomach sometimes.
You can, yes. I prefer it on my arm. It's just more out of the way. I found that it rubbed on the waistband of my clothes.
Oh, because I'm thinking like, oh my God, in summer it would be so nice to like have it tucked away, but I guess it depends on how it rubs on you or what you're wearing on the bottom.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the arm thing, it's like if you're wearing a sleeveless thing, you're like, oh, here's the glucose monitor. Not that it's a big deal because so many people are wearing them, but I'd be the person with like the tan line that looked like a bullseye.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, switch arms every.
Just have like glucose tan lines all over my body. Oh my God, I love it. Okay, I'm wrapping this up. I love talking to you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Mwah.
Sarah.
Talk
Thank
soon.
you. All right. Take
Bye,
care.
doll.